Hi, everyone. I'm Jana Memel, the Executive Vice President of Brand Storytelling at the Academy, and we're really excited to have you here at our first Alumni Night, where alumni are going to tell you how they got their start and give you some tips and tricks. And believe it or not, the people talking to you today used to go to these roundtables and want to know how to break in, just like you did. And it wasn't that long ago. And they're here to show you it's doable. So what I'm going to do is go around and introduce everybody, and then we'll kick it off. So Michael Franceschi is coming to us from Florida on vacation, which is really wonderful of him. Michael is an accomplished animation supervisor and character animator with nearly 20 years of industry experience in both television and feature animation. Throughout his career, he's contributed to multiple Academy Award and Emmy-winning films and series. He holds a BFA in illustration from Syracuse and an MFA in visual effects and animation from the Academy. He began his career at Nickelodeon Animation as part of their in-house pre-production team, quickly advancing to a leadership role and overseeing the animation pre-production of 7 different shows. Currently, Michael works at Walt Disney Animation Studios, where he served as both an animator and an animation supervisor for over 12 years. His feature film credits include Wreck-It Ralph, Frozen, Big Hero 6, Zootopia, Mona, Ralph Breaks the Internet, Frozen 2, Raina and the Last Dragon, Encanto, Strange World, Mona 2, and other unannounced projects. He served as an animation supervisor on iconic characters such as Baymax, Olaf, and Searcher. Michael's contributions to animated shorts include Frozen Fever, Olaf's Frozen Adventure, Inner Workings, Once Upon a Snowman, and Olaf's retellings. Zach Charters is an ACD art director based out of Los Angeles, currently working at Deutsch LA. Zach has an extensive background working in various different aspects of the creative industry. He started his professional creative career working at traditional branding and packaging design agency called DDW. Afterwards, he moved to a San Francisco-based medium-sized ad agency to transition into a field of art direction. Since then, he's bounced around from various agencies, working freelance as well as working at an in-house creative agency for a large tech startup called Pixar. Kyo Kim is currently the director of design at Gloss Genius, a company that develops software serving the beauty salon industry. In addition to this role, Kim advises and mentors designers and seed roundups. He was born and raised in South Korea and studied filmmaking there, moved to the US in 2010, thinking he was going to be a filmmaker, but at the Academy, he took a pivotal turn and he became involved in interaction and UI UX product design, inspired by the early generations of the iPhone. Since his graduation from the Academy in 2017, he's made significant contributions across various companies, including startups and industry giants like Zillow, Samsung, Capital One, Lyft, Facebook, and Lemmy, a financial software company that he co-founded. His primary focus is on user experience. He's deeply passionate about making a person's interaction with products both delightful and meaningful. He cherishes the opportunity to enhance daily life through thoughtful design and is grateful to do work that he loves every day. Eli Tuttle, with nearly 20 years of 3D modeling and environmental art experience, is currently the principal level artist at Firewalk Studios. But his journey did not start with game design. Eli received his BA in architecture and worked in social media games, architectural visualization, commercials, and a startup 3D software biotech company before coming to the Academy to earn his MFA in game design. He's leveraged both degrees to create believable, immersive, and engaging spaces. As senior 3D environmental designer on Mies Nation, as well as Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 and Call of Duty Vanguard, along with 3 other Call of Duty games, and Nvidia's Death Ray, where he was the environmental designer. Michelle Hill is a technical process nerd that loves 3D pipelines, character movement, and problem solving. She's got over 10 years of motion capture production experience and shipped a multitude of AAA game titles, ranging from NBA 2K, Mafia 3 to XCOM 2. Far cry from her journey where she started her career as a 3D animator. Hunter Patrick is the Associate Creative Director at AKQA, working with brands such as Levi's, Meta, WebEx, and Nike. So that's our team that we're going to be talking to today. So let's start with Hunter. Hunter, how'd you get your start?
Ah, well, let's see. After the academy, I really only had two goals. I either wanted to work in clothing or skateboarding. So I kind of spent a summer around doing a little bit of both of those things and trying to find places where I could end up in one of those types of companies. And after some bouncing around, I ended up at a skateboard company in Venice Beach. And after about 6 years there of doing skateboard design, snowboard design, and marketing, I kind of felt like I was outgrowing the place, and I stumbled my way into advertising. And I've been there now at AKQA in San Francisco office for 5 years, but now I've been remote in Los Angeles for the past 3.5. And yeah, I started there as a freelance designer, and I'm now an ACD.
And Eli, I know you've had a really interesting journey from architecture to game. You want to talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, so I did my bachelor's of architecture and got that in 2006. Thought I was going to work in architecture my entire life and build real buildings. And then in '08 and '09, when the economy tanked and I was the newbie on the teams, I was laid off a couple of times in a row. And oddly, while playing a game, Force Unleashed, I realized that they had A, architecture in it, B, 3D modeling, which I could do. And it wasn't until then that I realized people got paid to make games. So I took a trip out to San Francisco. I was in Philadelphia at the time. Went to the academy, got a leg up from the spring show. Somebody saw my stuff there, got a hold of me, got a contract job, and then years later wound up making COD for a while, and now I'm at Firewalk making Concord.
Michelle, I know you've transitioned a whole lot from 3D to mocap. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So I got my let's see, I started as like a 3D animator. I solely wanted to animate for video games. And so I started pursuing 3D animation and game design at Academy. And then eventually I applied to 2K games after I graduated. And I thought it just went into like a black hole. And I had them reach out to me one day and they were like, oh, we have an entry-level role. It's not an animation position. It is capturing. So you'll be capturing B-roll footage for our next AAA shooter. And that job was me basically capturing in-game footage of Evolve, which was an upcoming game at the time. And I had to capture footage from the video game, and then they would use that as marketing assets for like IGN, and we would do Twitch streams. So it was very like just capturing game content. And that was a contract. So I needed to figure out what to do after my contract expired. So I was looking around within the company, but there was no animation position that I was experienced for. So I heard that they had a motion capture studio, and I spoke to my art director about it, and I had to apply like everyone else. And I didn't really have any experience in motion capture. I did not want to do motion capture. I just thought it was taking away jobs from 3D animation. And so I just applied. I thought it'd be good to kind of get my feet wet in that area. And upon applying, It was a QA role for motion capture data, and again, no background. So they had allowed me to transition to their department. And that's kind of where I got my like start. And it's, almost 10 years later, and I'm like in love with motion capture now. So I've transitioned from going from QAing motion capture data to a mocap tech. And then ultimately I was a production manager at 2K Games, where I was overseeing a team of 12 to 15, a mix of motion capture techs and junior animators for the motion capture studio. And now I'm at Reality Labs and Meta doing motion capture for research. And I'm officially a motion capture stage manager. That's my long-winded journey.
What about you, Zach?
So I got my start. I actually went to a traditional four-year college. I went to the University of Colorado for 2 years to try to get into their advertising program there, because I'm from Colorado. But when I was in the program there, I realized a lot of it was kind of 10,000 level view of looking, here's what the great advertising campaigns were, or here's some great famous, creative directors, which I think is valuable. But then I went and visited my cousin in San Francisco, who was at the academy. Hunter is actually my cousin, so he's the one that got me into the academy. And and then I went and visited and joined the advertising program. And actually, but as soon as I graduated from the Academy of Art, I didn't go into advertising. I actually got an internship at a traditional graphic design and branding firm. And I think I wanted to go there just to really sharpen my craft. I think that, while I studied art direction for advertising in school, I also did have a desire and a love for graphic design and traditional graphic design and branding and package design specifically. So I ended up getting an internship right out of school at this small agency. And I think I was there for about 4 years. I was a graphic design intern, then I was a junior designer, then I was a graphic designer for about 4 years. And I got to work on clients like the global rebrand of Energizer batteries, which was a big undertaking, and Campbell's Soup. We got to do a lot of work with Amazon as well in their package design, which was an interesting undertaking as well. But I think it was, for me, an opportunity to really sharpen my skills at a professional level for graphic design. And while I always did have a desire to get into advertising, it was a good start. And then ultimately I got the opportunity to transition to a small advertising agency in San Francisco, where I started out as a graphic designer there, but switched over to art direction because I just believe that inherently art directors should be good designers as well. I think you need to be able to concept and create, or concept and also create, I guess, to a degree. So, and then since then, I stayed in the art direction path and have bounced around everywhere from client side to creative side, and kind of wanted to explore all aspects of creativity and both sides of the fence, right? Being in the creative agency or being on the client side as well.
Thanks, Michael.
I just want to say I love hearing about how everyone started off. This is fantastic. And as I'm sure a lot of the students can hear, is that it's just people taking opportunities where they come in, right? I started off, I did a 4-year in illustration back east. I'm from New York. And pursuing that, I was terrified of the likelihood of forever waiting by the phone, waiting for the call for from some art director that's gonna, want spot illustrations. But I had always been interested in animation. I actually wanted to get into background design because I loved Ivan Earl, I love Maurice Noble, the biggies, and then I was talking with, just anecdotally, I talked with, I was living in the city at the time, New York. I talked to this gentleman named Willis Pyle, who was an animator during the days of Pinocchio, and he was a member of this place that I worked at called the Society of Illustrators. And he's just kind of poking around, and we got to be friends. And he's like, well, did you ever consider character animation? Because you talk about it a lot. So I decided that if I'm going to do character animation, I'm going to have to move out west. So I went to the academy. Fortunately, with an illustration portfolio, they allowed me to come in. And it's worth saying that for the graduate program at that time, this is some 20 plus years ago, you're able to do all aspects of production, which ended up getting me my first job at Nickelodeon right out of school. It was a choice at the time between Weta, which seems fantastic in hindsight, or Nickelodeon, but I had my heart in cartoons. So with an ultimate goal of being, I was that kid in undergrad that traveled with all those oversized VHS cassettes of the Disney library. So I did get picked on at the beginning. So after, so I spent a long time at Nickelodeon. We had an internal pre-production team as was introduced, and we would build shows essentially, do character performance tests, animation libraries, essentially set the show standard for each show, and then train some vendors. And then around 5 years, I got that itch and decided to make my move into feature animation, and have been at Disney Animation since beginning of 2012. And I've loved it ever since. Working on some amazing projects with some amazing people, and forever learning even to this day. So I think that's the skinny for me. Yeah.
Hey, Kaio, you're up.
So where did I start off? So originally came from South Korea in 2009. And when I was in Korea, my major was like filming and commercial video and making some K-pop music. Actually, that was my motivation to come to US, to go to Hollywood. And once I get into US, friend of mine, just long to short story, friend of mine got an iPhone 4 around the time. And I had a chance to like playing around the iPhone, the new iPhone. At the time, I had a like laser Motorola, the flip phone. I'm not sure you guys know that. And then like it showed me the interaction, it showed me the really beautiful design. And all of a sudden I really curious like who designed like this type of design. And I tried to Google it to figure it out, like who designed, what kind of designer do this. And I realized there's not many information except for Steve Jobs, and Apple. So at the time I was like, oh, maybe no information could be a good opportunity for me, like to be maybe to be a pioneer, or like to get started or define this job market or something like that. So there was a really simple reason to like be the UX designer. So I was research about it, and I realized AAU Academy Art has a major to like I could study that major. So I got into AAU. And there's a lot of community I learned that after studying the UX design, like between film and design, like I have to understand the character really well in order to tell a story in film. And same thing in UX, like I have to understand our user really well in order to make the great product. So it was, even if the two major was like were totally different, but I do see a lot of commonality, like in order to the tell the story. So it wasn't a hard entry for me. So since then, I started to work at Zillow, Capital One, Samsung as an internship. I learned a ton how to communicate, how to collaborate, how to come up with the story and product. And then after that, I joined Lyft and work at Facebook, work on like e-commerce and marketplace at Facebook. And then like I went back to Lyft again because there's good opportunity. I could manage the autonomous vehicle and electronic vehicle. So since then, I became a manager because I really enjoy like mentoring and like help other to grow and success and shine. So, and then here I am. I'm currently at Gloss Genius. It's a Series C company. Yeah, I'm enjoying my job right now.
That's the key though, isn't it? Enjoying the job. So I'm curious, some of you are hiring people, some of you aren't, but you know what they're looking for when they're looking to hire people. And that's what everybody in this audience wants to know. What do I need to do? Is it my portfolio? Is it networking? What is a hiring person looking for when they're looking to hire people? And I know, Michelle, you actually do hire people, so I'm going to ask you to start.
Yeah, so it varies from company to company and team to team. When I was at 2K Games, and a lot of the times what the team was looking for is communication, which is big, especially in motion capture. Like there's a lot of, and I don't think just motion capture, just like when you're working in a pipeline, when you're working with others, communication is so important. And so a lot of times, I would ask questions, me, being the manager, just kind of like questions about problems that, the candidate has done. Like if they have worked on a project, even if it's a personal project, I would want to know, like, can you walk me through your project? Like, what are some technical challenges? How did you solve them? And I'm usually looking for how they communicate, how they're able to communicate and identify the problem and then the solution, and also be able to communicate just any roadblocks and how they move past that, because communication's in key, but also like what's your pragmatic approach to kind of move things along, because we're working in this pipeline. And I'll be honest, games, you're really put through the grinder. And there's no everything can be go, go, go. So you kind of gotta be able to communicate really well. So that's one of the many things, and there's really no silver bullet either.
Kaya, what about you?
I would say definitely like portfolio is one of the way we really care about like when we are hiring people, but I would say portfolio only shows some of it, but not everything, meaning that portfolio is very important, but it's type of like validation process to understand whether this person can get their job done. But I think like there's a lot of people who have a really good presentation or portfolio. I think differentiator could be the potential, like whether if this person can grow, if this person can like bring the highest impact once these people can join, I mean join the company. So for example, like attitude is like really the things I really care. So when I do the interview, I could see when I like ask the hard question about their portfolio or work, someone said, "Oh, that's a good point. I'll think about it. I haven't thought about it." Like being very honest, if you haven't thought. But some people said, "Oh, actually, there's a reason," and I knew that there's making something up. So like I think these ones clearly show the attitude, how they collaborate. I think like it's already been mentioned. I think collaborate and communication is one of the really important things to understand, like if this person can grow and see the potential. So I would say attitude is one of the very important things I and my colleague care when we hire people, because there's a lot of talented designer and folks out there, but the attitude is the thing we can see the potential if this person can like rock it and above the race of art.
Thank you. And Michael?
Yeah, I'd love to chime in here. As an animation supervisor at Disney, I'm able to see sort of not just the sort of through the tunnel vision of the animator, seeing, designers to, modelers to riggers to technical directors. So the commonality on the artistic side, of course, as everyone has said already, is your portfolio or your reel. Within the first few seconds of an animation reel specifically, or a design reel, if the person has the ability. It really doesn't, I remember when I was at school, like, lead off with your best, end with your best. Honestly, just put all the best in the front, because you might not get to the rest of it. And if you're in the hiring process, as I am, or as a lot of people in this room are, time is of the essence, and going through a ton of reels that it might be 2 minutes to 5 minutes long, you might not get to the end. So I can't stress enough to use the time that you have at the academy, this protected time, to generate the best work that you possibly can. And meaning not just the best work that is compared to the person sitting next to you or is in your online class. It needs to compete with the greater collective that are all applying for jobs. And I know that seems unfair, but that's the sort of reality since I started and how it is now. So portfolio side, so focus all that energy on that. And within that time that you're spending generating or creating this body of work, you're going to naturally make the connections that are meaningful that you need to proceed in your said career. One of the most meaningful things that I had and I took out of the academy were those connections and basically able to email folks afterwards to say, hey, what can I do? How can I get better? Reach out to people and don't just sort of rely on, well, I'm better than that guy next to me. So make sure that you have a sense of reality on how you're entering the workforce. 2 or 3, I don't know what number I'm on, 3. Reputation is really important. I want to stress this because we've seen a lot of folks come through, and I've seen it where they're super talented, or even if they had a lot of potential, you bring them in and they either couldn't communicate or they're abrasive to work with, and that follows you. This industry, my industry is small. I'm assuming my colleagues here all have really small industries as well, and word gets around. So make sure that you're always putting that professional foot forward. So those are sort of my 3 criteria of importance.
Thanks. Eli?
Piggyback off of what a bunch of people have said, so example of when we were hiring up for Vanguard, I wasn't ever a hiring manager, but I always had significant input on the team because I was kind of the most senior guy on the MP team at the time. And we opened up our open recs for people to get jobs. And within the first week, we had 1,200 people apply for positions. So to Michael's point of put your best stuff forward. Imagine being a recruiter having to go through 1,200 applications. You got to turn that back around in 2 weeks. Sadly, they don't have time to go through everything, and it sucks. So for my field, like the environment art side, pick 3, maybe 5 of your best shots. And that's what goes on your portfolio. Within that, if that gets your foot in the door, then it goes into what everybody else has been saying about what are your communication skills? Can you impart onto that panel what you were thinking as you were doing something, what you're thinking of beyond, where could I have taken this had I had more time? Because all of us, everybody here in the ad agency is I've worked with them. I never did ad work, but I've worked beside them. They want more time. The animators want more time. I want more time. We're shipping a game soon. I want more time. I'm not getting it. So being able to tell somebody what you wanted to do is valuable because it lets that panel see where you're thinking and how you're thinking, because they want that person on their team to go, hey, we could do this, that, this other thing, and inspire people to do more. So yeah, pick your best stuff. If it's not 100% what you think is incredible, don't put it out there. You can have it as a back pocket of something that they ask, hey, do you have anything like this? Yeah, sure. It's still not great, but here's representation, because you're having that face-to-face talk. It's not a recruiter just looking at something. I hope that helps.
It does help. Of course it helps. Zach, what about you?
Well, I feel like a lot has already been said, but I guess I can continue on that. At least I think a good point here, I think Eli just said it too, is you really don't have a whole lot of time when you've been tasked with the last job I was at, I was hiring junior designers, and I think same kind of thing. We put a job application out, and within the first 3 days, I think 800 applicants had already applied, and I want to go through each and every one of those. But at the same time, I can't remember who had said it previous. It's the first 3 to 5 seconds. If I open your portfolio, I can tell almost immediately if you have it or not. And I think a lot of that goes into even, obviously your projects should be organized and designed in a way that's really easy to digest, but even just the portfolio build itself. I think in situations like, you know, when I'm clicking through 500 to 600 portfolio builds, you start to see a lot of the same templates over and over and over and over, and things that catch my eye and make me stop to look, or even like unique or maybe untraditional portfolio builds. And I think that there's only just more and more tools and applications that you can use now to make your portfolio even more unique. Just from a, and then that's just me speaking from a purely visual standpoint. Like if it makes me stop, then I will, it's going to catch me up and it's going to make it more of a memorable experience. So, I mean, yeah, to be honest, honestly, the portfolio is the very first thing I see. We kind of know from that point on. And then if it's the interview process, I think everyone here is already, I don't want to just kind of reiterate the same things, but obviously communication, the way I see it, right, is, you know, I'd love to hear you talk about your work, but I'd also like to ask you questions that aren't related to work. I'd like to see who you are as a person. I think that that's equally as important. It's good to have, you know, if you have different hobbies or different passions, it's always okay to bring those out, because I just want to see what drives you and what inspires you outside of the design world. I think is a question I typically ask is what motivates you outside of the creative space, because I think that that's equally important, right? Like obviously this is our jobs and our livelihoods, but you need to be able to inspire yourself and fill your creativity up in other ways. So it's always nice to hear that from them. And then this is kind of a weird thing, but it's kind of like, you know, this it's a sense of like, how, you know, if we're the only two people left in the office late, you know, we're working late, like, can we chat, right? Like it's kind of like a compatibility type of situation, and seeing how you work on your toes. Are you good, you know? And I think someone mentioned also, you know, having a can-do attitude, taking feedback, working together. I think another question that I always ask is, what's your creative process like in terms of, you know, do you need to work in a silo, or are you okay with picking up other ideas or working as a team collaboratively? I feel like I'm rambling now at this point, but I hope some of that was insightful.
Yes, Hunter, why don't you bring up the rear?
Yeah, oh, well, now being at the end here, I think everybody has said just about everything, but I think that really, when it comes to your portfolio site, like, I think a lot of things that Zach was saying about even in the interview, like, I kind of like seeing personality within your site. Like, don't be afraid to be bold. Like, get in your bio and show me personality there, because that might be one of the things that helps stick as well. Like, if I'm going through and I'm seeing those first 2 to 3 things, I like to go and click on an about me and just get a quick vibe for who this person is. And it's like, if you're in there and it's just got a bit of personality that jumps out at me, that's another thing that helps stick. You know, like, don't be afraid to be yourself and inject personality into your portfolio, because it's just one more thing that can help you stand out in a crowd. And like, don't be afraid to, in advertising especially, it's kind of just like, be weird, be fun. Like, those are just kind of things that we're always looking for as creatives. Like, again, adding to like, who are you going to want to hang out with in the office? Like, be weird, be silly. It's just kind of what the vibe is in advertising. So embrace the weird. That's
Embrace
mine.
weird, I love that. I'd be remiss, because this is an Academy event, if I didn't ask you all what you got from the Academy that helped you get your first job, helped you as you went on the path. Hunter, you want to kick it off?
When I was at the academy, it was amazing. I felt like it was so competitive, especially in the graphic design program. It was, everybody just wanted to get their work on the walls. It was every single project, every single class. It was who can get their work up on the walls. And I feel like it kind of turned us into this like mini agency vibe of who is going to do the best project to get their work up on the walls. And I think really that experience of being in that environment really set us up for success, because we were all working so hard, and I met a lot of people through that kind of competitive spirit that I ended up becoming the best friends with. And you know, I had somebody tell me that when I was starting school, like, find the person that's better than you and make that your best friend. And that's the first thing that I did. And then we just pushed each other harder and harder and harder. And I felt like throughout that process, it just made both of us better. And I think that competitive spirit, like, if you're in school right now and there's that person that just kicks your ass in class every day, be that person's best friend. They will make you better, you will make them better, and you will just continue to push each other throughout your process. And it's just the best thing you can do. So get competitive, but have fun with it. and that's what the academy did for me.
Thanks. What about you, Kaya?
There's a couple things. Definitely like I learned and like experience at AAU, it impacted a lot in my career. The first of all, like me as a Korean, like in Korea, there's usually answer and direction is always given to the student. So at academy, the one thing I try to do is like trying to understand instructor's mind to in order to get the great grade. So I like come up with some concept, went back to my instructor, asked them the question, hey, is it good or not? So I can understand if how I can initiate it. But the thing is, the frustration thing, first of all, I expect they give me the answer, clear answer. Oh, this is not a good direction. You should tweak to like something else in order to get the grade A or something. But they never give me the answer, which is very frustrating in the beginning. But the experience let me try to come up with my own story, come up with like try to find my own way in rather than just like going to the direction what already like provided by director. So I think in the beginning it was hard, but more I did it, it was really great experience. And now I know how to find it because in the reality in job, we are facing a lot of different challenges, a lot of different product. So every product, every story have a like their own its own story or challenges. So I think it helped me to build my own muscle to overcome the challenges, overcome like come up with a good product here. And second thing is, like Hunter mentioned, I think network was like one of big part of my career, what I got from AAU. So after 2 years of graduation, we each other like refer each other into our everyone's company because we spend together. We know what they're good at. We know like what their like skills like. So we started to like refer each other into that like their company. So I think building a network is one of the really great things that I got from AAU.
Michelle?
Yeah, I think for me, it was definitely exposure. So I come from, I grew up in Sacramento and the suburbs. And so when I moved to the city, it was kind of like a big thing. And at Academy of Art, I was exposed to like other people that were also pursuing the same thing I want to be. And like, kind of like Hunter said, I realized how many really talented people there were. And so I would try to, find the best person, sit next to them and kind of learn from them. But I did make a lot of great friends from that. So it was definitely exposure. It puts you right in the city. And also it kind of grows your network. So yeah, I would say those were the like really good things about Academy of Art for me.
Eli?
For me, two things for me mainly. One was the networking. Which was one reason I came out to San Francisco. I was like, Philadelphia doesn't have exactly a robust game development scene. There's some stuff going on now, but nothing I was interested in back then. So getting out here, meeting people, and at the time, we had a program at AAU where you could do a one-on-one work with a person in the industry. And that person eventually turned into my boss at Sledgehammer Games, and then eventually turned into the art director for MP there, who I've stayed in contact with, even though I'm not there. And since then, I've also wound up working with a number of my classmates over the years. And each time it's been because we were cordial to each other in the studio, and we knew each other well enough to be like, this person will actually like sit there all night and get the work done because it's a stupid deadline. And that's great. We need them on the team versus somebody, as people mentioned before, I think it was Michael, of like the one who's beating their chest and all gung ho, but is terrible to work with. They might be awesome, but if they're terrible to work with, they don't last because you need people to be able to sit there at midnight and go, yeah, this was great. I'm glad we had a good night. Let's have a beer now. And then the other one for me was the technical side. Like I came in from architecture and I could model, but I was very much self-taught. And I understood form and space and order and everything that makes an environment and makes a building and makes like a space feel real. But I had some really bad, I mean, atrocious techniques. So I got cleaned up by that by having some really harsh instructors who let me know the lay of the land real quick, so that that teacher who's really laying into you at times and not being your friend is probably doing you the best service that you can have versus the one who's like, great, that's good, it's really cool, next. Like, you want the person who's going to push you and make it hard, because your boss does not care. Your boss wants it done because he has a boss and they have a boss. So go after the people that push you.
Michael?
Yeah, that's a really good point. To never settle with it. Grades don't matter. You have to get the legit feedback on your work. For me, it was a few different things. As everyone said here, networking, it's obvious. You're going to be either meet people that you might be working with, or you're sitting alongside of folks that you'll be working with. So that's like, you can't beat that kind of interaction. And that was given to all of us that went to the academy, I think, in varying levels of wherever, if you're doing a BFA or MFA. What I really enjoyed with my discipline at the time was the self-initiation. I think where a lot of students need to sort of understand is that just because you have the degree, or you have the certificate, or you have done the courses or whatever it is, doesn't necessarily earn you the right to any sort of job. It's your self-drive. And I think that's what Academy for me at that time did for me. Was, here are the courses, here are the people, go do your thing. Like, it is your choice now. It's in your hands. We're not going to lay it out to you and for you. I mean, here's the requirements for the degree, but we're not going to dictate your level of success here. It's up to you. And I really like that. And what the practicality of that was in the directed studies. And I think Eli had mentioned this. I really love that. It's like, I have this goal and this person over here is really, really good at it. So I'm going to go to them. And that led me to the varied course selection too. It's like, you had so many things that you could take that aren't immediately applicable, or they're applicable, but they're not directly correlated to maybe your pursuit. I wanted to be an animator, but I had to take all these other things. So I had an instructor that helped me with modeling and rigging. I came in without technical skills and I left with technical skills, which is pretty fantastic. And then it gave me opportunities later after I graduated to enter into supervisory roles and able to communicate with various departments on a professional level in a meaningful way. And I want to also poke at, I really value education as well. And at the time it was, sort of a brick and mortar thing where it's not just, you're not just taking art classes. And this might be a controversial thing to say in this setting, but education is actually really, really important because that furthers your ability to interact and communicate with the people that you're going to be working with in an intelligent way. So don't shy away from those courses that you have to take, because it's going to give you the critical thinking skills that you will need later in your job.
And Zach, you're the last one.
Again, honestly, going last year is tough. I feel like everything's been checked off here, but I guess it's my turn. Honestly, I touched on my background as well. I think actually developing the hard skills and techniques from the academy was with a complete hands-on experience is something different than I had experienced from going to a traditional four-year college. And that was from the beginning. I think my first 2 years at the University of Colorado was very much hands-off. And while I do think that there is some value to that, I think at the Academy of Art, it's from day one, at least in the advertising department, you're on the keyboard, you're on your computer, you're designing, you're concepting. And I think that was just invaluable information that I needed. It kickstarted my career. So that, and then again, I think Eli and other people had touched on this, but I think it's growing a thick skin. I don't think you know, the professional world, right? Like the professional world is, there are great bosses that want to help and inspire, but at the end of the day, it's all about how you take the feedback and implement it, and also, you know, do it with a smile on your face. I feel like, you know, it's, if you don't have a good positive attitude like that and a thick skin to kind of weather, you know, maybe a harsh critique, or maybe it's a client review who doesn't quite understand what you have, you know, what's in your head, but you have to just swallow, I think, maybe some of your anger, or swallow your pride, and continue to get the project done. Because at the end of the day, it's the client's money. And so I think, yeah, that, aside from the hard technical skills, I think it's, yeah, growing a thick skin.
Well, I'll let you be first this time. So we have two more questions, guys. So just hang in there for two more questions. So the next question is AI. AI is coming. How do you think it will impact your industry, and what do you think students should do to become AI literate?
Well, I hope I don't upset other people on the panel here, but AI is already in advertising. From an art direction standpoint, I typically use AI every day, even if it's for something as like quick, you know, what used to take me hours of comping and taking in thousands of different elements to put together for like an idea, like a concept for an idea for an outdoor activation, I can do much easier by just quickly like prompting or working with either Midjourney or Dolly or any of these other tools that you have available to you for generative AI, for image generation. It's being used widely professionally, I think, not in external final communication phases, but it's used like another tool, right? Like I use it as another tool, as I use Adobe Creative Suite, and I use it for concepting and inspiration. Obviously, when it comes to the final finished product, we're either shooting or compositing it in a different way. We're not using AI, but I use it as an inspirational tool. And then my advice to students is, look, it's a harsh reality in the fact that, like, it's it's been opened already, right? So I don't think it's going away. So my best advice to you would be to at least be somewhat knowledgeable in it, because if you won't, someone else will be. And oftentimes, if someone's looking, you know, the last company I worked for was a tech startup that was not only a photo and video editing app, but it was also a generative AI platform. So it's just, in my personal opinion, I'm seeing it much more prevalent in everything that I do. So my suggestion is, it's a tool. Use it to the best of your ability. It'll make your life a lot easier. But just know how to use it, right? It's not the end state. It's more of an inspirational tool, I should say, that you can use to help in crafting something great. It shouldn't be the only thing you should use, but it should be a tool in your belt for sure.
Thank you, Kaya.
I think Zach covered most of the things about I wanted to say. So in UX field, is I would say future is already here. Like we are using AI every day. Like we are using ChatGPT or Cloud, like to come up with the story, to come up with like rough draft of the PRD, like product brief or copy. And we are using like Midjourney to come up with some like inspirational like image or things. But like at the end of the day, still we are making the decision as a designer. I know there's like a lot of concern. What if AI replace our job? I don't think probably it will happen, maybe 10 years, I don't know. But I said now we should know how to leverage AI tool. And it's a tool, as Zach mentioned, we should think about like what are some tools we save our time? What are some like AI tools out there that I can work more efficiently? If you're ignoring like tools out there, probably we are like there's a lot of designers leveraging the AI. So they can work faster, they can work efficient. So we should think about like, again, how might we leverage AI tool to make our job easier, more efficient? Yeah, that's what I wanted to cover here. So AI only help our job easier right now.
Hi.
Did you say me?
Yeah.
I don't think we
okay.
said.
I haven't used it in my work yet. I know people in games that have, but like everybody says, it's a tool. I 100% see the power of it, and I just haven't had a need for it because of the pipelines I'm in. And generally, every time we've seen some new quote disruptive technology that's going to put us all out of jobs, like it's just integrated into the system. It helps us make stuff quicker, and means we get to make more of it. And sometimes you need more people to do it. Michelle can talk more about, motion capture, but that was going to kill every animator's job. That didn't do that. 3D scanning did not kill every environment artist's jobs, because you still have to put things together and clean it up. So it's still just going to be another leg to jump through, or a hoop, not a leg.
Hunter?
Yeah, like Zach, I use AI every single day. For me, it's there was something that an ECD said at my office pretty early on, and he said, "You won't lose your job to AI, but you could lose your job to somebody that knows how to use AI better than you do." And that becomes with all the things that we've been talking about with time efficiencies, and about being able to just comp things up faster than other people. So if we're in the middle of a pitch and we're sprinting and we're going extremely fast, if I ask somebody to get me this comp of a futuristic casino and you're over there in Photoshop trying to get it done and you're not getting it done fast enough, and somebody's over there using generative AI and they're getting it done, it's just, the things are going to look better for them. And that's just kind of how it's going right now. But as far as how it's being used in the industry creatively, like I was lucky enough to work on the first ever like fully AI generated commercial for GoFundMe. I can drop a link here for people, but we did this like a year and a half ago, and it was like right at the beginning when Dolly was coming out. And it's like looking at this now, it's so crazy to see the evolution of how these things have, how crazy it is now. Like you look at a Midjourney image versus what this is now, and it's so far beyond. But I even looking at this, I'm like, it's crazy that we did this now, because putting AI imagery into advertising and things like that, I just kind of wouldn't do it at this time. I think it works well for inspiration, but the blowback would be too big now. I think Sora coming in, it's like the imagery, if like I saw a Sora commercial right now, I'd kind of be like, fuck that. Sorry, pardon my French, but like I think that, like if you were using that in your pitch to sell it to a client, like great, that helps you get the message across. Totally. Go out and shoot it for real. That'd be my say in it. And I think that that's really where we're at with using AI. It's extremely helpful, but it's a tool.
Michelle, how's it working in mocap?
Yeah, so it's I would definitely say it's a tool. It's just another tool that should be used responsibly. But it's, again, like I would say my advice for students is to just learn about it. There was a lot of fear about the generative stuff, especially in motion capture. And there was the fear of like, oh, it's going to take motion capture jobs away. I can't see the future or anything like that. But I think the more knowledge you have about it, like just learning about it, you don't have to, build any algorithms, but maybe if you just familiarize yourself with it, it's not as scary. And you're just informed. And yeah, it's just a tool, in my opinion.
And Michael, from your point of view and Disney's point of view.
I can't speak for Disney. I'm going to go on record for that, or else I'll get in trouble. But I might be the dinosaur of the group, and you'll have to forgive me for this. But I have to say that I do see its benefits. I think as any tool, as everyone had said, it doesn't come without a sense of responsibility and having an understanding of the foundational creative and design sensibilities. Like, don't shortchange your pursuit and developing your craft with shortcuts. And that goes with any tool, I think. And I'm, like I said, I'm a dinosaur, in that there are protections right now. Our main thing, not to go like union on you, but like there are protections that our industry and the animation industry is trying to put into place to prevent wholesale takeover from it. There is that fear. But it's not different than, say, the 2D animators back in the day being fearful of CG taking over. And to some degree, it did. So but the folks that were able to adapt, and I still work alongside of some of those classic veterans of hand-drawn animation. So your adaptability is essential in understanding this new tool set, right? For what we're potentially looking at, and this, you can't quote me on this, is like to have maybe a smarter in-betweener, meaning we generate the key poses to create a performance and establish the breakdowns and how those things move from pose to pose. But maybe it's a smarter, there's a smarter way of having the this AI understand how we might in between and craft a performance between those ideas. Our current pipeline at Disney and a lot of animation studios doesn't support this yet. Again, there's a lot of fear behind the replacement. I mean, everyone's seen what's going on Instagram with visual development artists. That, I think that's sort of the scariest part for us, is the beautiful hand of the visual developer is you know, being usurped by AI platforms. And so if I wanted to you know, a painting by this person, and it, you know, it has that information, there's no restrictions in how in the use of that imagery. So I think that's where a lot of folks are scared. Not so much in my camp, but and again, this is just, like everyone said, learn the tool if it helps you, but don't shortchange your education again with shortcuts. Yeah. So I think that's it for me.
Okay, so last question. So I think what we've all heard from this is to explore your options, to never be stuck to just one path or one job, to raise your hand and say, I want to try this, or I can do this, to put your best work first in your portfolio, to learn to be a great communicator, to network, to be able to explain your creative process. So those are all great tips we've heard. So now I'm going to ask everybody, if you were to give some person sitting in front of you, your younger brother or sister, your mother said, I have a friend's son who needs advice. One piece of advice about how to go forward and break in, what would that piece of advice be? And Zach, you didn't like being last, so you get to be first.
I already went first. This is tough. You know, my one piece of advice, I think we've touched on all different aspects of this, but don't be afraid to try anything and everything, right? Like, I think success is never a straight line. I think it's okay to kind of zip around and see what you like and pull from each of those experiences. So I know it can be scary going out into the unknown, but I just think that you need to embrace the chaos, embrace the uncertainty, and just put your best foot forward and believe in yourself. I think more than anything would be my advice, but what do I know? So I feel a little weird giving advice, but
well, you know,
I tried.
as far as you've gotten, so that's worth it. Kyle?
Yeah.
Did you just call my name?
Hmm.
So I would say, I know many of folks like mentioned about the networking. I think kind of related to that, I would advise to build your personal branding. It's not about like making your like name logo. You're not about like making your website. Like, let people know who you are. Let people know what you're good at. So even if you have a lot of different people in the industry, nothing happen if they don't know about you. If they don't know what you're good at. So you have to build the identity, like who you are. So use your like a lot of platform, like LinkedIn, like Facebook, Instagram, like Thread, whatever you can expose your work, expose your thought. I think you have to build a connection to the network. So I think that's what network means. It's not about just like you go to the happy hour, you go to the conference to meet people. I don't think that's the network means in this industry, at least in UX field. We have to, even if you're a friend of you, if they know about you, your portfolio, your work, what you're good at, I think that should where network should start. So if you focus on the building your personal branding, like just like show your work, show your portfolio to your friend, explain about it, and so they know about you. And then your network will be expanded to your friends' friends and your coworkers to coworker. That will gradually expand your network and ability by using your personal branding.
Thank you. Michelle.
So I guess advice, I have two things. I would say first one is to be open to the challenges that will come to you, and really push yourself, because not only is it a journey, it is a very competitive one. So you always make sure to kind of like put your best foot forward, put your best work out there, scrutinize your work. If you don't feel like it's your top-notch good stuff, don't put it in the portfolio, don't put it in the website. Make more stuff. And then the second thing is networking. Network with your peers at school, but also, meet others out there at conferences. And when you're networking, make genuine connections. Don't just see that individual as a means to an end. You want to actually make genuine connections, because it's a small world, and you got to be humble, because you'll be surprised how tiny the industry is.
Thank you so much. Hunter?
I'm actually going to respond to a question I saw that was in the chat earlier. And it was about how a lot of us have pivoted when we were talking from maybe something that wasn't our major and what our jobs are now. And I'd say that what your major is now doesn't necessarily have to define you for who you're going to be. And so I think we've been saying be open to opportunities, but yeah, you could be majoring in something now and be scared of committing to something like that, but just because you're an illustrator now doesn't mean you couldn't end up being a copywriter later. And so be open to thinking that you could be anything still. You know what I mean? So don't close yourself off and think that you just have to be one thing. You could still be anything you want to be, and the decisions that you make right now don't have to define you for the rest of your life too.
Michael?
That's a great point. Yeah, we all sort of took different paths. I started as an illustrator, ended up as an animator. So yeah, be open to your journey. Oh, I hate saying journey, but I think a lot of it was some of the best advice that I had when I entered the industry. I wish I had when I was in school too. And I think we touched upon it a little bit here. It's about selling yourself. Like approach it as you are an entity, you are a business, you are selling. Even if you want to work at a major studio, you want to work at a major design firm, like you're essentially creating, like, you're not just one of those cogs in that machine. You are sort of a piece of that is irreplaceable. That's what you want to represent. And I think a lot of folks had talked about, bring your personality forward. That's huge. It's like, when you look at work, what differentiates yourself from other candidates is you. So make sure that you're in there. Don't try to emulate something else because that's the hot topic right now, or that's what you think folks want to see. Make sure that you're always present in whatever work that you have. I think that is something that I wish I knew back, when I was in school. It's like I was always sort of thinking about like, well, what's going to give me the job, and then there was always a little piece of me in there, but I wish I leaned into that harder, or I knew that was such a valuable piece of information. And I think Michelle said it, it's not easy. If it was easy, you wouldn't be in school trying to learn about it and try to pursue it. So this is an ongoing pursuit, and you'll never stop learning. If you think you got it, then you've probably really far from it. So I think always knowing whatever discipline that you're in, making sure that you're constantly learning, and knowing that if opportunities don't come, it's not personal. If someone gives you tough critique, it's not personal. They're responding to something that is created. And what the danger is that we create a lot of things and we pour ourselves into it. If you're doing it right, you're pouring a lot of yourself into it. but you have to realize they're not responding to you as an individual, they're responding to the work in front of them. So I think it was said before, the thick skin, but that's a sort of meandering bit of business there as a it's a takeaway. But I think if you collect them all together here, you got some good advice.
Eli?
I'm gonna bounce off something that Hunter said about like you can be anything you want still. And all of us in some ways kind of prove like you can change careers. But while you do that, you'll never know what you did in a previous job that is going to come to your next job and be super valuable. I did XML like scripting at one job and I didn't have any training in it. I on the job learning, right? Next job, I go to Sledgehammer and things are broken. And I know enough code that I can now go into the files and fix stuff so that we can unblock ourselves as an artist. Like I never knew I was going to learn that. I didn't think I'd be doing that. So I found something valuable in a rinky-dink job that was more effective in a AAA setting that my lead didn't know how to do. So all of those little things that you learn, try and find the positive about them in whatever job it is. Even if it's a barista at a Starbucks, you're learning customer service. You know how to talk to people. Use that later on. So look at whatever you're doing right now and try and find ways to keep using those skill sets and to add on to them.
Thank you guys 100 million times. I really, really appreciate it. I'm sure the students do too. We've kept almost everybody, so this has been awesome. And I really thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Good luck, everybody. Thank you.